Rin looks serious. Even if I did, I think I have to be going. I'll catch you around, Tezuka. You can call me Rin. I feel that our relationship is, at this point, is good enough to warrant this much. I was already turning to make my exit, but she draws me back in. Fine, then I'm Hisayo. Then you are. Rin looks at me hard in the eyes, but that intimidating feeling you get when someone stares at you is not there. It's like she's actually not looking at me at all. She blinks a couple of times, and I can figure out why a pause like this just popped between us out of nowhere. See you later, Hisayo. There's something like a tiny smile there on her face, maybe. I quietly back out of the room. As I shut the door in front of my face, I whisper to myself, what an intriguing person. From inside, I hear a muffled sing-song voice. I heard that. What did she hear? I jump at the sudden appearance of Misha, who I had not heard approaching, despite the completely empty hallway. Somehow she'd gotten to jumping distance of me without making a sound. Creepy. It briefly reminds me of Kenji's nutty theory about global feminist conspiracy, but I push that thought aside. Shizune, standing slightly behind Misha, looks aloof, as she couldn't have heard the remark that drew Misha's attention, but Misha is visibly excited. Now wait! More importantly, who is in there? There's no club meetings today. She tries to curiously peek past me, even though the door prevents her from seeing anyway. What are you two doing here? You took so long that we had to come to check what's wrong. That's not good, Hiko-chan. She wags her finger at me scoldingly. I found plywood, but everything else is still missing because you are tardy. Oh, sorry, I got the things here. Was just going to bring them. I think you're up to some mischief, Hiko-chan. Who is in there with you? I wonder. Misha signs something quickly to Shizune, pointing at her own ear a couple times. Shizune immediately pushes her way past me and opens the door into the classroom I just left. I can only imagine the shock she's experiencing. With Shizune's diligence and attitude, the insolence of daring to deface school property by sleeping on top of it must be too much to bear. And indeed, she stares at Rin, frozen in place apart from the slight but noticeable trembling of her shoulders, from suppressed rage, I'm sure. Instead of blowing up, Shizune just takes a few deep breaths, adjusts her glasses, and slams the door shut, turning the sign furiously at Misha. Maybe she did blow up, but I can't understand it. She shoots a very loaded stare at me too, as if it was somehow my fault that Rin is sleeping on one of the tables. I hope she's not getting any funny ideas about the reason for my tardiness. Hello? Rin's voice comes from the other side of the door, and it takes a few eye blinks to realize she might have trouble opening it. I open the door to find Rin directly behind it, looking at us with half-interested, half-sleepy face. Hello? Miss Tezuka, what do you think you were doing? You absolutely are not permitted to use school property for such, disgraceful activity. It is sure suddenly very crowded in here. I didn't know I was this popular. It's hard to say whether she's happy or unhappy about this turn of events. At any rate, she ignores Shizune and Misha's scolding, so they have no choice but to drop the issue. Shizune taps Misha's shoulder, points at Rin, and makes some quick signs. Popularity aside, please don't do that anymore. Anyway, how is your project going? Will it be done for the festival? Rin looks at them blankly, apparently at ease under the pressure Suzune's cold stare is putting on her. I keep wondering that about myself also. And? We'll think about it harder. As Misha signs a reply to Suzune, her face turns into an unsatisfied frown. Miss Tezuka, please try to take this seriously. It'll be a disaster if the wall looks like someone threw up their lunch onto it. Rin nods assertively. We'll think more seriously. Misha actually giggles at that, but Shizune doesn't, not even after the translation. She just shakes her head, takes the materials from me, and takes off with Misha in tow. Rin frowns thoughtfully as she looks after the retreating student council duel. How rude. It's true, though. I must finish my project before the weekend. There'll be dire consequences if I don't. The end of the world as we know it. Like weekends usually are, but more dire. Much more dire. Maybe I'll postpone my nap to unforeseen future. I'm about to ask which projects she has and what those apocalyptic consequences are, but she walks back into the art classroom. Since you have nothing to do, would you give me a hand? This paint can doesn't fit into my bag, but I need it. She kicks lightly at the huge can of paint that's lying on the floor next to the table she was sitting on and sleeping on. It lets out a dull clang. Being the gentleman I am, I naturally pick it up. Heavy. Yeah, sure. Where do you need to take it? Away. And with that, she takes off to the hallway, me and the paint can following since there's little choice for either of us. The hallway's quiet and empty now with Shizune and Misha gone, so we two leave towards the stairwell at the other end. Every 10 or 15 or 20 steps I have to change the can from one hand to another because the thin handle cuts into my palm. At least it keeps my arms from tiring too fast. Rin strolls beside me with an uneven pace that I have trouble matching. Or maybe I'm walking weird because of the extra weight. It seems one of us is constantly walking too slow or too fast, and I can't figure out which. Two flights of stairs below, Trouble appears in the form of the head nurse and his fox-like grin. Mr. Nakai, what a happy coincidence. Tezuka too, of course. He nods courteously towards Rin, who does not acknowledge him back, then turns to me because obviously it's me who he had some business with. There is something I forgot to mention on Monday. I nod and wait impassively because I can't even begin to guess what he forgot. The feeling of the handle delving deeper into my skin doesn't make me feel enthusiastic about this interruption either. It's about your medications. Since you've been that long on your current medications, there might be some unexpected side effects that might require adjusting dosages or even changing to another kind of medication. So we'll do a few tests regularly, but what I'd want from you is to keep an eye on everything in your condition that feels off, if you get what I mean. Nausea, headache, anything. And come see me if something happens. Alright. So, how are you? Everything fine? I give up and drop the can to the floor before answering him. Apparently this takes longer than my biceps can handle. I'm about to say something generic as an answer, but then I realize how often I've done that lately. Other people have asked me that too. Teachers and students here. My parents, visitors, nurses, doctors at the hospital. Everyone seems to be concerned about that. It's natural for a hospital, not so much for a school. Except this school. This is a small school, and both the student base and the faculty seem to be very tightly knit. At least that's the feeling I'm getting. And this is not the kind of school that gets transfer students too often. The thought sends shivers up my spine, but I give a generic answer anyway. That's great. And one other thing. My sources tell me that you've been neither at the school track nor at the pool. I'd like to know if you've taken up exercising as I've asked. Of course I haven't, but his way of inquiring gives me the feeling that I should have been running my ass off at the track since the very first day. You have people spying on me? Not as such. I just happen to know a few people. But that's not the issue here. Don't try and slip out of it. Well, I was actually just doing some improvised weightlifting as an exercise. I pick up and lift the can up and down a few times like some sad imitation of a bodybuilder, even though it's weighing down on my arms painfully. The stupid grin disappears from his face for a second, and then comes back like it was never gone. Tezuka, would you give us a second? The nurse grabs me by the shoulder without waiting for Rin's permission, which he didn't need in the first place, and drags me aside. When I told you to exercise, I wasn't joking. I understand that you're still on your first week and all, but please don't ignore the importance of this. The reason I'm coming down this hard on you is that habits are not easy to form. The more you slip up and postpone, the harder it'll be. It's the same with everything, like dieting. Can you promise me to be more serious about this from now on? Let's just tell him yes. Yeah, I promise, definitely. He studies me for a moment and then shrugs, smiling again. Okay, that's more like it. If you go to the school track tomorrow morning, you'll meet my spy, who probably has no qualms offering consultation if you want to jog a bit. Consultation? See you around. He leaves with a wave of his hand and no answer, and I walk to Rin, who's been waiting idly, leaning against the hallway wall and staring at a pale lightning fixtures in the ceiling. Even when I approach, she doesn't move her eyes off of them. Are you getting medications for your heart thingy? Were you listening? It comes out more accusatory than I intended, accidentally lashing out on her. But even so, I don't really want to start talking about it. I just met her. I don't know her. It's none of her business. The nurse seems to be happily ignorant about confidentiality, too, talking about that kind of thing in public. But it's not Rin's fault, is it? I look up at her, suddenly feeling a bit guilty, but Rin is just staring past my shoulder quizzically, her head tilted like a bird's. Sigh. Sigh. I don't know why this is so hard for me. It feels like there's some inexplicable lock that prevents me from being more upfront about this. Yeah, they're for my heart. Will they make you better? No, not really. They just make me a little less worse. Rin keeps looking at me for a while longer, and she neither says anything further nor displays any kind of emotion I could discern. I'm thankful she doesn't. I think I'm still not quite used to all this. At the hospital it was easy, but I still haven't sorted out my feelings about having to live a normal life with this disability. We leave the main building and Rin leads us onwards towards the dorm. We stop at a small patch of greenery in front of the dorm building. The dorm is built on a slightly elevated ground with a wall and a few trees that everyone has to circle around every time they come or go. It's probably the only inconvenient design in the school. The entire wall, made of the same kind of bricks as the building itself, has been covered with some sort of a painting. Oh, hold on one second, I gotta make sure it's still recording. I just got a message. Alright, we're still good. Most of it's still mere sketches, quick lines drawn with black and white against the gray plastering that covers almost the entire length of the wall, but some places look a bit more finished. There are human faces and legs and hands. I can't quite say what the painting as a whole might portray. Stacks of what seem to be paint cans are arranged in piles on the ground beside the wall. See, the left side is hardly off the ground yet. It's because I couldn't get in the mood yesterday, so I gave up and went to meditate instead. Then it was suddenly morning. She went to sleep. I have to work on it, but the guys from the art class are helping with the negative spaces and the base surfaces whenever, which is a problem. It's easier to paint big areas if there are a lot of people with hands. The reach is better, and it's faster too. She goes on a tangent of a tangent, waving a little with her arm, or whatever of it there actually is, to demonstrate even though I got the point already. The white cotton of her sleeve flaps around, and it makes me think it could look sadder than it does. But it makes me feel out of place, like almost every tangible reminder of the student base's special properties it has in the past few days. This girl doesn't notice my dreary feelings, of course, or the fact that she lost me a while ago already, and just keeps on blabbering. So that's what I'm trying to figure out, if there's something I need to figure out, and then figure it out before it's too late and all hope is lost. Why would the hope be lost? Because the paint has to be painted, and then it has to dry, and then it has to be painted over with another kind of paint. It takes time. She finally stops, apparently thinking that she made some kind of statement that makes sense. I think it's best to start from the top. So, this is your project? You did this? Yes. Yes. All of it? Yes. Nice, but... I stumble with my words, suddenly feeling like I've walked straight into the minefield of political incorrectness.